this is the podcast I Do What I Want. My name is Hollis. Hi, I'm your host. This podcast is about mostly my book series, things that I write. I occasionally have uh, friends who come on and usually talk about their books and writing. Speaking of which, next month, my April episode, I'm going to have Trip Ainsworth, who writes the Smoke Pit Fairy Tales series, on the show, and we're just gonna shoot the breeze. To be honest, he and I are good friends. I've done a lot of voice work for his audiobook series that he produces himself, and he puts so much work into it. And he has, I think it's a 12-book series now. I've only read the first 3 books because adulting is hard, but they're really good. I enjoy them a lot. If you really enjoy like cool sci-fi, fantasy, World War III, aliens and robots and demons and all that, it's just really interesting. I like it. So yeah, stay, check it out next month, April, probably middle of April sometime. I'm gonna hash out the exact date, but really excited to have Trip on, and it'll probably be a long episode because last time I was on his podcast, every time I'm on his podcast, we're like, yeah, let's just talk for about an hour. And then 2.5 hours later, we're like, ah, shit, we're still recording. Life. So, moving on to this episode of I Do What I Want. This time around, I am going to be doing a refresher on the world of Raashan. For those of you who don't know me, most of you who listen, which the very few of you that do, I appreciate it so much. Thank you. I love it. I love you. I appreciate you very much. But if there's any new listeners out there, the Raashan series is a fantasy series. It's considered often a romantasy or dark fantasy series or all of the above. I consider it all of the above. And it takes place in the world of Raashan, which is why it's called the Raashan series. We do start focusing on a core group of characters, but my plan for the series is to expand it out into, the greater world where we can talk about stories and all different time periods of this fantasy world, and therefore people who have lived in different places and times within it, and we'll always kind of return back to sort of the storyline of these main characters, but not every book in the series will include them, and that is something we're going to talk a little bit more about today. But the first 2 books in the series are out. Those are To Save a World, which is book 1, and The Queen Witch, which is book 2. And the new additions, because I did new covers and page layouts, because I do that. Now I'm done for a while, I promise. I know last year I did this when I released The Queen Witch. I'm done. I really, now I'm super duper happy with the covers, and I'm going to leave them alone for a while. I got all creative brain, and it happens sometimes. I do all my own cover designs and page layouts, and, artists be crazy. So, artists and writers be crazy. Like, hi, I'm both. I get a little nutty, and I get a little persnickety with my own stuffs, and then I do more, and then but they're so beautiful and they're better now, and the page layouts are better, and my pronunciation guides are more thorough, and I added, like, there's all these little things. I put a lot of hard work into it. Please read them. The maps are pretty, I think. It's like a watercolor relief map. It is a watercolor relief map that I painted. So yeah, very proud, putting in all the hard works. So try, please give them a read. The 3rd book in the series, Tear in the World, is coming out October 3rd this year. I have set myself a deadline. I'm still writing the first draft right now, but October 3rd, it's the plan. Whole plan. Gonna do it. Gonna be super duper crazy awesome. And we're going to get a little bit more into what it's going to be about. I'm not spoiling. I promise you, not doing spoilers. This is just a little refresher, a little reintroduction to the series, and hopefully whetting your appetites for things. And also, I will be at Jordan Con this April. So it's April 19th through the 21st at the Crown Plaza Ravenna in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am a panelist. If you check out my Instagram, you can see the three panels that I will be on. And I also, I'm a regular guest as well. And myself and Alara Dunn, who is the author of the Magic Locker series, which is also more of a fantasy realism or modern. It's fantasy, but it takes place in like the modern world as opposed to like a whole other crazy fantasy world with elves, if that makes sense. Really good stuff. I like her books a lot. And she will be there with me. We're going to have a table together under our dual podcast, which is the Badass Banshee Energy Show. And we'll be, hawking our books and talking about podcasts. And if you just want to come up to us and tell us what your favorite mythological creature is or what your favorite dinosaur is, like, we want to talk about all of that shit. Like, please, please. You don't have to buy anything. You can just tell us some nerdy stuff and we will be very interested. That's always fun. Yeah. It's always fun. And we'll probably be in costume, maybe not full cosplay, but I can't help myself and neither can she because we're cosplayers. So we'll also be doing that. So Jordan Con, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, please do. It's going to be a lot of great panels on writing. I know I'm going to be in a book marketing panel and the book club panel where we discuss a book, and I think the Fantasy Worlds panel. I don't know. I have to double check. It's on my Instagram. If you go to @HollistromMcCullum on the Instagrams, I have it pinned what my panel is. So do that, please. Check my notes so I don't lose track of what I am doing. So, what is actually published right now for the Raashan series? As I said, To Save a World and The Queen Witch, both of which are BookFest award winners, by the way. So I entered them last year in the same I entered them same category, everything, because they're same series. And I thought I was just doubling my chances by entering two different books. Turns out they both placed in the BookFest awards last year. Very excited. The Fall BookFest Awards. So The Queen Witch got third place, and To Save a World got the honorable mention, which is essentially fourth place. But and it is a nationwide contest. So I'm really excited that both of my books placed. I thought I would be super duper lucky just to place with one of them. So they are two award-winning books. I'm only getting better at this, you guys. I am going to enter more books and have entered and waiting for results on more contest things with some of my other books. As you know, I also write the Lost Beacon Chronicles, which is on pause right now because I'm focusing on writing more Raashan series books, getting more of that content out, and the Lost Beacon Chronicles will continue in a couple of years, right? For now, there are two books out in that series, so if you want to hop on over there, you can read those and be super great. But the Raashan series, you've got two full-length novels, and you're going to have your third one out this year, October 3rd, and then you're going to have another one next year. Because I am busting my butt. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. Trust me, I am. I love to write. I cannot wait to make this the full-time gig. But in the meantime, I need your help with that. So we've got those two. They're BookFest Award winners, and they are available on Amazon and basically wherever books are sold. They're, of course, on the Ingram list, so even if you want to just walk into your local bookstore, which I strongly recommend, walk into your indie bookshop and you can just request them. You can, go to Amazon, get the ISBN number, whatever, say, hey, can you order this book for me? And then they can order it. Then you can get it from your bookstore, which is just cooler. And it helps support local business and helps keep your local bookstore, open for business so that you can keep going there and huddling up with your cool books and maybe a coffee and just like reading your heart out, which is always great. So I do like to recommend doing that. Of course, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, blah, 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 blah. You can find them all the places. They are well reviewed. They have great reviews, but they don't have a lot of reviews. So if you've read them and you've enjoyed them and you haven't reviewed them yet, please do. go send, go write me a review. I genuinely would appreciate it, and frankly, indie authors always need it. And spoiler alert, it's super free. It's super free. It's a great way to support any indie author is write us a review. We are eternally grateful. Please, please, please. I'm not above begging. So, the third book in the Raashan series is going to be called Tear in the World. And I'm very excited about that. So, again, writing the first draft right now, but I'm gonna have it out by October 3rd. The cover is already designed, actually, and the interior page layout is, with the exception of the front of the content, it's done. I know what I'm doing. I just have to plug in the words. So that should be very okay. The cover reveal is going to come in July. I will probably have it coincide with my parents' 50th wedding anniversary because A, it's an easy date for me to remember, and B, I'm just very excited that they're celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And I know that's a personal thing, but it's really exciting. I love my parents, and hooray, hooray, hooray. So July 27th will be the cover reveal of Tear in the World, and I'll do that on all my socials, and I post a short here with I usually do it with like a little graphic, and then I have the cover fade in, and I try to make it dramatic. I don't know how successful I am with the drama, but the covers are really pretty. So that's coming in July 27th. And this book is much more Aram focused. So if you're familiar with the series, the character of Aram, who, is more like kind of the dark loner type, he is, and I'm sorry if you hear dinging, my husband is like texting me a bunch of cat videos. Anyway. My phone is on vibrate, but it comes to my laptop, and I'm not sure how to silence that. So apologies if you heard it. Anyway, I'll look at those cat videos later. It's much more Rom focused. Tear in the World is the other main characters. They're there. We chat with them. They help out here and there, but it's much more focused around Aram and Yoslin. Their relationship and how, they get over, how they have to go through some shit together. And then of course, the world is in peril again, because that's what happens. Raashan as a world can just not get its shit together. Like, it's a little sad. But also, if I had a world that was great all the time, it didn't have troubles, then I kind of wouldn't have a book series. So I guess that's also my fault because I created these problems. That's fine. That's what authors do. We just create problems. But we are seeing a lot more elements from particularly Scottish mythology. I'm playing a little bit more with paranormal elements. It is called Tear in the World because it is dealing with, and this you find out in like the second chapter, is dealing with problems that erupt from a tear being cut in the veil between the two worlds, meaning like, the what we might think of as the existential, ethereal, like where spirits go world beyond the veil, if you will, and the quote unquote real tangible world that we can see, hear, feel, touch, all the things. And that there is a tear that has occurred because of some of these evil creatures, and I'm not going to go into the plot, but they do have to fix it, and I really enjoy. I am crazy about paranormal elements anyway. It's a lot of fun. If you've read the Raashan series before, I've already got some paranormal stuff in there because it's really, really fun for me, and I do go an eensy bit, a lot dark. I had a friend one of my very good friends, Kyoko, who I love dearly, and she's amazing. And she and her cat Cheese are in The Queen Witch chapter 9. I changed her name to Mora, but Cheese, the cat, is also he's himself. He plays him very, very dapper. But she actually told me the Queen Witch was very scary. She was like, "You scared me. How dare you?" And I was like, "Ah, I'm proud, but I'm sorry. But I'm also more proud than sorry." So apparently, the Queen Witch as a villain was very, very scary. And she was like, "I'm an adult, and you might give me nightmares." And I felt great about that. Um, and then I bought her lunch, and we called it even. But it deals more with a lot of Scottish mythology creatures. We have some positive ones like Brunies, which are house ghosts, little like good house spirits that help protect the home and things like that. And then we also have the evil ones, which I probably am not going to pronounce this correctly at all. But the Nuclevi and the Ichusid, I'm not going to say it right. Evil aquatic fairy creature things. They're not really fairies, at least in the world of Raashan. I'm not categorizing them as fairies. They're just creatures, magical creatures, but they're aquatic and very malevolent, and they play a big role in that. And there's also, this also takes place on an island chain. This is where the tear occurs, where a race of cannibals live, that they're mortal, but they worship the evil magical creatures that manipulate them into making the tear in the world. Blah, blah. It's very exciting, causes a lot of problems, and guess who has to fix it? Our heroes. Who has to fix everything in every fantasy series. It just keeps coming back to the people who's like, "Well, you guys did this bang up job the last 17 times. Can you please do it again?" And they're like, "Ugh, fine." And it works out great. So that is something that I'm very excited about. I also delve a little more deeply into the relationship between Aram and Jocelyn and what is going on with that, and just sort of how things develop as relationships mature, which I like to go into. As I've probably mentioned before, I'm a woman in her 40s. I love writing the early relationship stuff, but I've also, it's always the most fun. It's the most fun part of a relationship is the early part. But I'm also somebody who understands, having been in a long relationship and married for a long time, that these things, you have to keep working at it. Once you're married, that's just the start. The beginning, the first couple years, even, that's the fun part. That is the easy part. And then you get married, and you can still be very happy together, but it's different. And you have to continuously put work into it, and new problems arise that you just have to work through together. And so it's that sort of, I guess, a more mature look at things. You also get a better look into Jocelyn's past. Now, we don't know a lot about Jocelyn. Some generalized things about her from, so she talks about what happened. She's pretty open about it. But it's also painful for her to talk about, so she doesn't dwell on it too much. But we get to know some more of the rougher details of what happened to her when she was younger, which was, it wasn't fun. She did not have a great time growing up, and neither did Aram. It's one of the things that brought them together, is they had a similar issue with their childhoods. Very, very similar issue. And it's the trauma of what happened to Jocelyn in her past is triggered by something that happens, and they have to work through that as a couple, because these things happen, and drama, so always fun. Another thing that I am really doing with the Raashan series is I'm trying to kind of interconnect the books. As I've said before on the podcast, the book series that inspired me the most and that I still love to read is the Dragonlance series. It's a fantasy book series. It was super popular in the 80s and early 90s. If you were a fantasy reader back then, they're still all excellent books. And my forever book crush is Tanis Half Elven. And let me just say that like 11-year-old me was 1,000% spot on right. And 42-year-old me is still like, oh yeah, Tan is 100%, 1,011 C's, many's percentages, like all the way. He's the best. So, okay, just had to fangirl out on that for a second because he is my ideal. But, and I know he doesn't exist and he's fictional, but that's the life of a book nerd. So the Dragonlance series, they had their core characters, the original trilogy that they started with, you know, which is the War of the Land, or the Chronicles is what they call it, and deals with the War of the Lance anyway. Not going to get into that. But that then branched out, and they had other books, of course, that they kept coming back to those core characters, and they would do things like talk about it. But then the series took on a life of its own. The world of Krynn, which is the fantasy world that the Dragonlance series is based in, all of a sudden people just became very fascinated with the world of Krynn itself, and they had all of these amazing things where they just had, they would create all these other story offshoots and things that were happening on the island of the Minotaurs that had nothing to do with anything that the core characters had ever done or would ever do, but it was really interesting, and I really loved how it took on a life of its own. And so yeah, I'm kind of trying to not mimic, but I'm trying to recreate the same feeling with the world of Raashan, which is, yes, we have the core characters. They're the ones that you think about, that draw you in. And of course, they're going to pop up here and there. And you'll be like, oh, that's the same town that Aram is from. Snap, snap, you know, and all of that. And maybe you won't be like, snap, snap. But you'll get excited because you'll be able to relate a place to a character that you know about, or it'll take place in the Irani village where Ethne and Darian grew up. And even though Ethne and Darian aren't in this particular book, you know that village because of your experience with Ethne and Darian already. And or even side characters that they met briefly in another book, and then all of a sudden the barmaid is back and she picks up the skillet and whacks people in the face with it. I don't know, but it's really something that I'm going to have little Easter eggs just peppered throughout the entire series. I'm very excited, and that is something that I'm also kind of starting to do, doing this interconnectivity, interconnectivity. That's the phrasing I wish for. Between all of the books, and that is in Terra in the World, we're actually going to meet an old seer, an old elven woman, a very old elven woman, and her name is Kristen Quailvan, and she's also an old D&D character of mine, as, again, if you've listened to other episodes, especially episode 1, where I talk about To Save a World and how it came about, it with my best friend who played the D&D campaign with me. That entire book was based on a D&D campaign that we played, and I just adapted it for novel. And I decided I want to take my other characters and put them in the world of Raashan and tell their stories. So a lot of the world of Raashan, the stories, they're my old D&D games. I'm so excited. I'm fully nerding out about it, and I will not apologize. I will be thrilled and continue to broadcast this because it is such a dream, I think, for a lot of super nerds, to be able to write about their childhood thing and put it in books and hopefully have people read it and love it and enjoy it so much. But I am taking these characters that I created, and I did a good job. And I already know their personalities, and frankly, I already have plots. I already know what happened because the adventures were created. And obviously, I'll adapt them as if anyone out there does role playing games, you know that role playing games, the adventure, it doesn't really directly translate to writing a book if you're familiar. Yeah, it doesn't, you can't directly, it's kind of like a book to film. You can never directly take book to film. They're two different mediums. You have to shift stuff around to make it work. And but I'm gonna be taking Kristen, and in Terran the World, we meet her and she's very old. And toward the end of her life at this point. And she helps Aram, she's a seer in this point, and she has the gift of, like psychic sight or whatever. And you can tell I'm very good with words. And and she does talk about, she alludes to her past regrets that happened when she was a young woman, that she had to sacrifice something. She had to sacrifice the love of her life for the good of the world. And now that, with 2020 hindsight and everything else, now she looks back and she's always regretted it. And she always regretted she doesn't regret doing what she did ultimately, but she regrets handling it the way that she did. And we get that little picture, and you go, oh, well, guess what? After the third book in the Raashan series, after Terror in the World, the one that's coming out in 2025 is the first book of the Histories trilogy in the world of Raashan. And the Histories trilogy is going back and telling some stories. And guess what book one is? It's going to be called The Key, and it's the story of Kristen Quailvan and what happened to her. And we're going to go back to when she was a young elf woman, and you're going to dig all the way into that relationship. That's right. It's another romantasy, people. We're going romantasy with it again. And we're going to see how it all developed, how she fell in love, why, how, when, who, the troubles, and what that major regret was that made her feel the way she did when she talked to Aram, and made her give him the advice that she gave him, which was ultimately incredibly helpful for Aram. So that is something I am very excited with. So I'm already trying to have everything intersect so that even if you haven't read, like, say, once I get all these books written and it's all very exciting, say you start reading the Raashan books with the Histories trilogy, and you start with the Histories book one, The Key, and then, you read that and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then all of a sudden you said, oh, I'm going to read some of the other books. And then you get around to Terror in the World and you're like, oh my God, this is what ultimately happened to Kristen. Like, over 100 years later, because she's an elf and they live for hundreds of years. So, and there's like I haven't decided exactly on the timeline. I think there's going to be around a 400 to 500 year difference between the History book one and Terror in the World. Maybe more. We're gonna see. Elves live for like 700 years. So we're gonna see. But I'm very excited about that, and that's something, again, that I really loved about the Dragonlance books, is you could start with one book that wasn't the originally, first books written, and you could still have it intersect. Like, when I first started reading the Dragonlance books, I actually read them in the time order that they occurred for the characters, as opposed to the order in which they were actually written, if that makes sense. So, what was originally written was the Chronicles trilogy, which is the War of the Lance, and the characters are all, like, mature, and they actually mostly all know each other. Some of them meet here and there, blah, 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 but they, it's what it is. But there was But then the authors went back because people wanted to know about the origins of how each character came to be whomever they were. And I read them in that order. So I read it from like the childhoods. There was a meetings sextet, because there were six characters or five main characters, and then the but there was a 6-book series about how each of the characters had their early childhoods, how they all met each other, how they ended up being friends or enemies or whatever. And I actually started with those books. So I started with the linear time model that the characters would have lived through. And I really enjoyed the series reading it in that order as opposed to the order the books were actually written. Obviously, I had the luxury of starting to read the books years after they had been originally published, so there were a lot out, and I could do it that way. But in my dreams, in my wonderful dreams that I have a lot, that my books are going to become, not I have no designs on fame, but I would like the book series to be very popular and have a nice fan base. So in my dreams, when I have all the books out and, I have dozens of books in the Raashan series and people love it and they read it all the time and they say, oh my God, I love it. And that is nice for me. They will have the ability and the choice to either read them in the order they were written or basically read them in any order they want. And it's all cool in my head. So that's the ultimate design for the Raashan series. So we're going to have the histories, which, again, going back to my D&D characters. And I will have things be intersecting. I will have timelines, towns, people. It's all gonna be things. And then after that, I'm going to go into the Origins trilogy. Yeah, I have this series planned out through 2030. So after Terror in the World, I have another 6 books already planned to be written. And I'm also going to do a series of short stories, like a trilogy of lots of short stories. We're gonna. I haven't figured out how that's organized yet, but I have 6 books that I've already planned. So I'm trying real hard, guy. I'm very, very dedicated. But the Origins trilogy. So if you've read To Save a World. And again, I'm not giving you a spoiler, but the main villain, if you will, is a guy called Kavan. And Kavan is I wrote him like a psychopath or a sociopath. He's a bad guy. And he doesn't make it, but a lot of people, not a lot, mainly my husband, if I'm totally honest with you. Asked me, he was like, I'm very curious about why he's the way he is. And I said, oh, well, in my mind, he was never good. Like, in my mind, he's a born psychopath. Like, he never cared about anything. He never, he understood the concept of right and wrong, but he also didn't give a damn. So, other people's feelings never mattered, all of that. He didn't... He was one of those, very scary people, quite frankly. And, the stuff that serial killers are made of, woo! And I watch a lot of true crime, like many women my age. and he said, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. That's a whole new level. I'd be interested to know more about this character. And I thought to myself, what if I wrote an origin story about Kavan? Because he was not the only person to ask me about Kavan. And we don't know anything about Kavan's background in the book. He basically just plays the role as Big Bad, and the characters don't try to get to know him because he's always trying to kill them. They're very preoccupied with the not dying, and they don't really have an urge to sit him down and be like, hey man, what's in here? What's going on? And they don't do that. They just whoa, shit, this guy will not stop trying to kill us. And we got to put a stop to this. So there is that. And so I'm going to write the first book of the origins on Kavan, and you can learn more about him. And basically I'm just listening to people, and when they're saying, oh, I really want to know more about the background of this character. Another character is Jocelyn. Jocelyn is a main character. She's one of the core group for, To Save a World, the Queen Witch, and of course Terror in the World. She's one of the core group, but because she has this interesting past, and people are very curious about why she she is the way she is, and why she could behave much more negatively. Let me put it that way. For somebody who has been through the amount of rejection and hardship, for no good reason that as Jocelyn has, because poor Jocelyn was rejected simply because of what she was and what she looked like, and not because of who she actually is and her own actions. Her behavior has always been, she's this upstanding citizen, and she tries really hard. She's actually incredibly sweet and happily bubbly, but she's also very needy because people mistreat her because of what race she is in the world of Raashan, and what she looks like. And there's just a lot of prejudice against that, so she is mistreated. You know, it sucks. But a lot of people some people don't like Jocelyn. Jocelyn's one of those very polarized characters where people either love her or they don't like her at all. Like, I don't want to say hate. I don't think anyone's told me they hated Jocelyn, but people are always like, oh my God, give me more Jocelyn. I love her so much. And other people are like, yeah, we can calm down on the Jocelyn. We're good. Thanks. All filled up. But I also find that the people who are more annoyed by Jocelyn than like her tend to maybe not have the ability to relate to her situation as much. And I have kind of from what I know, not everyone. Obviously, some people who write that they love or don't love Jocelyn, who are random, who I don't know personally, they, I don't know why or where, but the people I personally know that I'm familiar with their lives and they're my friends, and the ones who like or don't like her, I've noticed that the ones who don't like her, usually it's because they can't relate, at least in my mind. And I think, oh, I mean, good for you. I'm glad you can't relate to that because it's awful. And I'm very happy you don't have that problem. But the friends, and not the exact same problem, but the friends of mine who have gone through certain situations and hardships in their life, or just can understand it. One of my friends who actually has told me they really love Jocelyn is a social worker. And to my knowledge, they've never personally had that kind of trauma, but they work with a lot of people who have had those sorts of traumas. And so they really like her, and they really like how she's always taking the positive. And yeah, she's a little socially like needy and needs a little more approval because she's been rejected so much. She needs to be like, hey, can you just like, I need some more hugs. I need some more hugs. I'm very, very much in a hug deficit in the overall lifetime here. So, that thing, but they understand that impulse because of who they work with. So that's what I've found with her. And people have asked me for her backstory, which she's going to I haven't decided exactly the order of the Origins trilogy. That's going to be, like in 2028, 29, but going to write Jocelyn's backstory, and we're going to find out what happened to her exactly. You're going to get all of the awful truth about her young life. And then the wizard Tim. So again, he's in To Save a World. Tim is a great and powerful wizard. He's almost 1,000 years old, and he was born human. But he became so powerful that the magic fused with his being. And, because in my mind, in the world of Raashan, if you become a powerful enough wizard or magic user, the magic sort of fuses with you and just keeps you alive. You could even become immortal, possibly. We really don't know. Very few wizards or magic users ever even get to a point where the magic makes them live longer, or even, but Tim is like his old master, Elysius, was previously the most powerful wizard that the world of Rashan had ever known. And Tim was his protege, and Tim has been around for almost 1,000 years at this point. And again, he started out as human. So he's very, I mean, he looks super old. Because the magic is keeping him alive, he has like no joint pain. He's happy, he's up, he's running, he enjoys a great cup of tea and sitting in his cozy chair and blankets and stuff, but he also is like, yeah, but I'm good. I get a good night's sleep. I have a healthy gut and I'm fine. Like everything's fine. Because the magic is just coursing through his veins and he doesn't have the health issues that a lot of people who live to be, you know, older than you think most people would become, like for us, like 100 or in the 90s or whatever would have. So I want to write Tim's origin story, and people have asked me about it. We do learn a little bit. Tim does talk about a portion of his backstory in The Queen Witch. In the first book, in To Save a World, we just know that he was born human and he's old, for the most part, and that he's a great wizard. But in The Queen Witch, we do get a couple... Hi, Kit Kat. This is my cat. Hold on. Okay, come here. Okay, let me hold you. Sorry for the interruption, folks. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, Tim is going to be... His backstory is really interesting. We do learn a little bit more about a significant part of his life in The Queen Witch. He shares some of that, but he's going to he's got a lot. He lived for almost 1,000 years, so there's a lot going on, and a lot going on in the histories of Rashan, which when I write Tim's backstory, there's going to be a lot of intersecting with those characters from the Histories trilogy. Right? I'm really excited to just connect the dots with everything. Kid, I don't want you on the computer. Now is not a good time to go on the computer. No, not right now, buddy. Not right now. All right, so I feel like I have rambled on for quite a while. And yeah, the world of Rashan. I'm really excited, and I hope you are too. It's really fulfilling for me to write these books, and I honestly can't say enough how much I appreciate those who read them and, those who will. And those who listen to my podcast. Thank you, I appreciate it. Most genuinely. And Kit Kat does too, because he needs kitty food. And, royalties help pay for kitty food, so... it is something special for me. It is something I do get to share a big part of my heart, and I do put a lot of friends and family in the books. So just to give you those Easter eggs, my sister-in-law, Jess, is Jess in The Queen Witch. She is tall tan Jess in The Queen Witch. My actual sister-in-law, who I love very much, is not tall at all and is not tan. She is gorgeous and wonderful and all those other great things that the character of Jess is as well. But yes, so that's my sister-in-law, and I just gave her own name because I felt like it. I like her name. And then Hay and Jay, who are owners of a cafe in the Queen Witch, and they'll be popping up. They are friends of mine. There is a cafe that I walk to from my house. I'm very lucky. I live in a very walkable area, for the States anyway. For those of you who are abroad, you are probably fortunate enough to just be able to walk to things anyway, because that's how the rest of the world operates. But here in the States, it's a little more difficult unless you're in like New York or someplace nice like that. And yeah, so I can walk there. It's only about a mile from my house, and I go there at least once a week, and it's wonderful. And the owners are a lovely couple named Hay and Jay. And Hay, it was always her dream to have a coffee shop, and she does an amazing job. It's so good. It's so good. And she makes everything from scratch. They roast their own beans. She bakes her own bread. When you order toast, it's like fresh baked bread that Hay made, and like egg buns and scones and everything. She makes it herself. It's amazing. Anyway, I am getting off track and dreaming about a good cup of coffee. And so they're real people. Jeeve is actually kind of based on my brother. There are a lot of things that I embellish Jeeve with that are not my brother, especially in To Save a World, but he's a lot of what he does is my brother Ross, who is a wonderful person and always seems to be good at everything. It's not that he's trying to do it. He's just one of those people that's like, I've never tried this before. Oh, look, I'm amazing at it now. Amazing. Isn't that funny? It's like you're amazing at everything you try. You're just very annoyingly talented, and it's genuine, but yeah, so that's, and of course he ends up with his now wife, because that's the cuteness, and that's the romantic part of, well, one of the romantic parts of The Queen Witch. For those of you on the romanticy side of things, yes, I do have romance in every book. It's very important. I'm trying to think. Oh, of course, Cheese and Mora, which are Cheese and Kyoko in The Queen Witch as well. There's a lot in The Queen Witch. And then in Terror in the World, my friend Tiffany, who is going to be called Dawn in the book, is in Terror in the World. She does a little couple chapters. She's an innkeeper. Who also might be a serial killer. Anyway, we're just gonna let you read that, figure it out. I told you I get a bit dark, so yeah, paranormal, possible serial killer, cannibals, evil creatures. Don't you want to read my books? Please do. Again, it's got the series planned out through 2030 and still planning on writing more after that. So you will have 9 books in the Raashan series to read by 2030. Is that not super mega excitement? I'm really excited to share it with you all. So if you want to know more about the world of Raashan, please feel free. You can DM me, you can ask me the things, you can do stuff. And again, I'm sorry if on the recording it's picking up my cat like scratching around me silly. He is a loud boy. And that's it. And meet me at Jordan Con, April 19th through the 21st. This at the Crown Plaza Ravina in Atlanta. I forgot what that was for a second. I'll be on panels. I'm gonna have a table with Alara Dunn, and I'll be there all weekend. I'm really excited. So yeah, check me out, because cats. And I really am genuinely thrilled that all of you are listening, and I will see you again very soon.